My name is Sonia Shaw, and I'm the regional recruiter based out of Mobile, Alabama for the University of West Alabama. Today, we will be discussing the ACT and what it is. During this presentation, you will gain a basic understanding of how and when to register for the ACT, the test structure, and why it is important. Feel free to ask any questions during the presentation, and I'm going to pass this along to our regional recruiter based out of North Alabama, Shaw Cornelius.
All right, so yes, as Sonia said, my name is Shaw Cornelius, and I'm the North Alabama Regional Recruiter for the University of West Alabama. And in this ACT webinar series, we're going to be going over what exactly the ACT is and a few other details going forward from there. But as Sonia said at the very beginning, in this webinar, you're going to gain a basic understanding of how and when to register for the ACT. There are going to be a few caveats throughout this presentation with changes in COVID and stuff like that, and I'll address those as they come up. You'll also get a basic understanding of how the test is set up, the structure, different sections and all of that. And another thing is why the ACT is important, how that relates to college admissions, scholarships, and things of that nature. All right, so what is the ACT? So the American College Testing Exam, it is a standardized test that college and university admissions officers use to see pretty much exactly where you are in terms of being prepared for college. It looks at academic achievements. It was first offered in 1959, and it was actually an alternative to the SAT, which we will be touching on here in a few weeks. It is comprised of four main sections. That is an English section, mathematics, reading, and science. And you also have the option to do a writing section if you want. So when is the ACT? The ACT is offered about 6 times a year, and the number can change depending on test location. And that's going to be another caveat with COVID. They might offer the ACT a few more times, depending on if certain testing facilities aren't able to adhere to social distancing rules, things of that nature. And the testing dates, they always fall on Saturdays, and there are some alternative dates if you have a religious conflict or anything of that nature. For students watching this, if you had already signed up and taken the test on February 6th, we hope that you did great. If not, then hopefully you'll join us for this series and we'll be able to get that score a bit higher. There are a few more dates coming up in 2021. We have an April 17th date, a June 12th, and a July 17th date. They may add more of those in the future, but these are just the ones that are listed on act.org as of this moment. A few key things to keep in mind here. Make sure that you're paying attention to the registration deadline. You do need to register for the ACT before that date or on that date because you don't want to hit that late registration deadline. You'll still be able to take the ACT, but there will be a fee associated with that. And later in this presentation, I'll touch on the different fees that are associated with some of the things that go within taking this test. And then there are the estimated score release dates as well. All right, so how can you register for the ACT? So the first step is to visit the official website for students. It's act.org, and you will sign up for an account on that website. So you'll create that account and you'll be able to print your test admission ticket. That is a very important factor. You will need that once you actually go into the testing facility to show that you've actually registered for the ACT. If for some reason you don't have access to a printer, definitely get in touch with your guidance counselors or someone of that nature. They'll be able to print that off for you if you don't have that available. Step 3, you'll answer a series of questions about your academic background and your future college plans, just kind of give them a brief overview of that. And you'll also be asked to list the 4 schools that you want your ACT scores to be submitted to, and then you'll upload a current headshot as well. When you take the ACT, you're allowed to send those scores off to 4 colleges for free. After that, there is a fee associated with it. Just keep that in mind. Next part, you will pay you'll pay your ACT registration fee. Once you've paid the required fees, and or if you qualify for a waiver as well or a voucher number, they do accept those. Once you've done all of that, then you're finished with your ACT registration. And this is where I want to touch a little bit on some of the fees that are associated with the ACT. So just the regular registration fee, if you're taking the ACT with no writing portion, it's $55. And this does include getting your scores back and sending it off to the 4 different colleges that you're interested in. We definitely hope that UWA is one of those colleges. If you're taking the writing portion, that is a $70 fee for the ACT with the writing. Again, you still have access to send that information to 4 separate colleges. The late registration fee that I alluded to previously, that is a $35 fee on top of the registration fee that you would pay for the ACT. There's also a few other minor fees in there as well. There's something called a change fee. If you've already registered for the ACT and you have to change your date or change your testing location and wait a bit too long, that is a $35 fee as well. Yeah, if you change your test date or test center location, that fee will be associated with it. So before you actually go and you're registering for the ACT, make sure that you have in mind that this is the location you need to go to. Basically plan everything out before you actually go through and complete all of the ACT registration. And again, the last step, print your admission ticket for the test day. You'll take that in and be good to go. So why is the ACT important? The ACT, usually what I say is that the ACT and your GPA go hand in hand. Your high school GPA, that is. They're super important when it comes to college admissions and scholarships as well. Again, caveat with COVID, there are some colleges that have gone test optional in terms of admissions and scholarships. UWA has done that for this year with admissions, and some of our initial scholarships are also test optional, and I will touch on those here in a minute. The other reason that the ACT is important, and one that isn't necessarily touched on, is class placement. So actually the scores that you receive on the ACT will determine exactly where you are placed in certain classes. This is especially true for your English and your mathematics courses. All right, so how is it important for admissions? Again, this is showing colleges exactly where you stand in terms of being admissible, seeing exactly what information you're able to retain and see what classes that will be best for you. And again, while the ACT is just one of many factors, again, the high school GPA is a huge one, and that is still very important. Even with certain colleges going test optional, I definitely recommend that you take the ACT regardless, because it will come up in so many different factors, such as applying for scholarships. If you're applying for different honors programs, they will look at the ACT in that regard as well. So definitely take the ACT when you get the chance. And some examples for UWA are for unconditional admissions, that will begin at a 19 on your ACT, and conditional admissions, that will start at a 17 on your ACT. The difference between unconditional and conditional admissions, conditional admissions means that you will have to take some preparatory classes before you actually go into your full major. If we see the 19 on your ACT, then you'll be able to go right into your general major, and touch a little bit on class placement here in a bit. All right, so scholarships. Many colleges are going to use the ACT to determine your scholarship, the scholarship money that is awarded to you. How that is determined, the higher your ACT, the more money that you will receive, as shown by this chart here. And this is showing you exactly where our ACT and scholarship money stands at this time. Again, this could change in the future, but for now, this is how our scholarships are being awarded. And also keep in mind that every college will have a different process when it comes to scholarships. Some will require different essays and stuff like that. But for these initial merit scholarships, it's solely based off of high school GPA and your ACT score. So we have the first four initial scholarships: Tiger Achievement Award, Counselor's Award, Director's Award, and Dean's Award. Those are our test optional scholarships. So if you're able to get a 21, 22 on your ACT and you have at least a 3.0 to a 3.24 GPA as either or there, you will receive that scholarship, so on and so forth. The other scholarships that do require the ACT, they're just larger scholarships that we have to offer, and so we do need to see that you have that ACT score to receive that money. All right, and class placement. So this is the third way that colleges are using the ACT. They're looking to see exactly what score you receive on certain sections, and that's where they will determine which classes you go into. College algebra is the first college level credit bearing math class that students may take. So keep that in mind. That's going to be the first one that most students are going to take, college algebra. And for example, if you were to score a 12 on the ACT math section, you're probably going to be placed in a preparatory math class, which is fine. You're going to learn a lot of information, perhaps catch up on some of the things that you might not have known. But the thing to keep in mind with developmental preparatory classes is that they do not count towards the number of college credits that you need in order to graduate. So it only shows just how important these scores are, in your ACT. You definitely need to make sure that you're getting a high score in especially the English and mathematics section so that you don't have to take these developmental classes. So what is the format of the ACT? Getting into the actual test now. So ACT divided into 4 sections, and it is a bit of a lengthy test, but it's about 3 hours and 15 minutes. So definitely make sure that you are honing in that whole time. Each section is formatted the exact same way the ACT is offered. So they're not going to throw like any type of like weird history sections at you. Nothing like that. It's all going to be the same sections every time. It's always ordered the same way as well. So you'll start off with English, mathematics, reading, and then science. And then if you signed up for the writing portion, you have that option after all of that's done as well. So breaking down the English section, there's about 75 questions on the English section. And another big thing to keep in mind, and we'll definitely go into this with how to prepare in our next webinar series, but keep in mind the time periods that are in place for these, because you don't want to run into a spot where you've got a lot of questions that you haven't answered and no time left to finish these. So definitely keep all these times in mind. But within the English section, you're going to be looking at grammar, usage, mechanics, and rhetorical skills. Going on to mathematics, it's going to be 60 questions with a 60-minute time limit. So basically, you have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. Things that they're going to be looking for in that: pre-algebra, elementary algebra, intermediate algebra, coordinate geometry, and elementary trigonometry. So personally, mathematics was always one of my worst subjects. So this is something that I definitely needed to hone in. If you see that some of these sections might be a bit more difficult than others, definitely focus in on these. And once we go into our ACT bootcamp here in a few weeks, we'll definitely go into some of that as well. The reading section. So there's 40 questions in the reading section with a 35-minute time limit, and this is solely looking at reading comprehension. This is where you're going to see long passages and explain what you've seen in the passage, and going forth like that. The science section as well. There's about 40 questions in the science section, 35-minute time limit, and what they are looking for: interpretation, data analysis, evaluation, reasoning, and problem solving. And then you have the optional writing portion as well. It is 1 essay prompt, and to my knowledge, the essay prompts are they're always persuasive or expository. If you're a really big fan of narrative stuff, I'm sorry, they usually do not offer that. I don't believe that they offer that. It's usually only expository or persuasive. And some schools will require that you actually have this writing portion. Some schools are really looking to see exactly where that score may fall. So definitely keep in mind the schools that you're applying to. When you get to that stage, look to see if they require that writing portion, because you may not have taken it for the the composite score that you need. So how is the ACT scored? So the questions that you answer correctly in each section, they will all just be counted. And this is another key thing to keep in mind here. No points are deducted for incorrect answers. So if there's one question, let's say it's something in English that you just have absolutely no idea what it might mean, you're completely lost on that, do not leave it blank. You literally there's no reason to leave anything blank on here because, yeah, I mean, a 25% chance is better than a 0% chance. So keep that in mind. Your raw score will also be converted into a scale score, and that goes from 1 to 36. If you're getting a 36 on the ACT in terms of college admissions, you will have no problem at all. And this table kind of gives an outline of some of the ACT scores. So they will convert your raw score into a scaled score. And each test will vary a little bit regarding the number of questions answered correctly in the scale score that you will receive. But these are some of the numbers to keep in mind. And if you're able to get a 32 or 36 on your ACT, then you're going to be good to go. Those are excellent ACT scores, and we'll have a little a breakdown that you can use in your own time to get to show the score that you need to get. All right, and here that is. So how do you get your dream score? So this chart, you can use this in your own time to write out the scores that you need and then get that composite score. Definitely make sure that you're taking every opportunity that you can get. Every question that you get correct, that's only going to boost your overall score. So again, there's no real reason to leave anything blank. But the big example here, let's say you're looking to go for a 20 on the ACT. That's a little bit less than the national average, but if you're getting a 20 on the ACT, that is still pretty good. So your English, that would be, you're looking to get a 45 to 47 on that. Your mathematics, you would get 31 to 32. Your reading, 23 to a 24. And then your science, let's say you get about 20 questions right on that. That will average out to a 20 on the ACT. And this is not including the writing portion in there as well. The thing with the writing portion is, though some colleges may require that in terms of college admissions, if you know that writing is not one of your big strengths, I would be hard pressed to say that you might not consider doing the writing portion. If you know that you're just solid on all the other subjects, but writing just might not be your strength, again, remember that it is optional. All right, so some preparation work that you can do. And again, this is just kind of going to be an overview of preparation. In our next webinar, we're going to go really in depth into ways that you can prepare for this. But definitely take advantage of online resources that will help you prepare for this test. It is just like any other test. The more prepared you are, the more practice that you have done previous to the test, the better that you will do on it. It's just a consistent work of practice, and then that will give you a much higher advantage in regards to this test. Also, if you've taken the ACT before, or if you've just taken any other standardized test, try to remember exactly how that format was laid out. That is only going to help your chances again in this one. This next point, I am definitely guilty of this in a lot of areas, but don't try to cram information. That's only going to lead to burnout. And once you actually get into the test, you're not going to be able to think quite clearly. So try to avoid cramming information prior to taking this test. And plan out and set aside designated times to review and study. Again, this is all going to be practice. The more practice that you do, the better shot that you will have. And this is our resources page, and these presentations will be available if anyone needs them. And also, all of this information can be found on our website within our ACT webinar series. But practice tests, again, definitely take advantage of that. The more often that you do these tests, the more used to them you will be. ACT Academy as well, they've got a lot of good information there in terms of test preparation, practice quizzes, test prep. Always take advantage of that. And then video lectures and test prep as well. A lot of stuff here for you guys to use. And then continuing on that, that is actually where our ACT prep page is, and all of this information will be listed there as well. I definitely recommend that you check it out. And then I've also put a link here that goes over different COVID updates. ACT is currently working to kind of navigate through the pandemic. There's talks of trying to do remote testing, super scoring, retesting for certain sections. I don't believe that that's actually been confirmed all the way, because in terms of taking the test remotely, looking at remote proctoring and stuff like that, it could be a bit difficult, but they are working on that. I just don't think it's been implemented yet. But I definitely recommend that you check this page out just to make sure and see where they are in that process. All right. And that will conclude our first webinar series. Hopefully you guys have a bit more information about how the ACT is set up, kind of like what you're going into. But is there anything that I missed on, Sonia?
So if you are watching this through a recording, please do not hesitate to email admissions@uwa.edu if you have any questions in regards to the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you all if you're watching virtually. Yeah, definitely glad you joined us. And I hope that you join us in the future for our other webinar series. We got a lot of good information coming to you guys. But until then, we'll see you next time.